Thank you. Enter meeting. Well, good morning, committee, and welcome. Thank you for coming in on this warm Monday of June. Hopefully it's the start of a long, hot summer and great for our community and our businesses and markets and events that we have planned for the summer. Heidi has sent her regrets. She is out of town with her husband today, but she has made comments on the information that has come out, so we will address those through Amy during the meeting. So for the recommendation of the adoption of the agenda of the Community Grants Committee meeting dated June 23rd, 2025 be approved as circulated. Mover and a seconder, Cam and Kelsey. All those in favor? And that is carried. And I'll ask if there's any disclosures for pecuniary interests. I see none. So we'll approve the minutes. Minutes, Community Grants Committee of the meeting of January 13th, 2025. The minutes dated January 13th, 2025 be approved as circulated. Questions or comments? Mover and a seconder. Joe? Cam? All those? Huh?
I wasn't there, so.
Well, that's okay. Joe and Cam, all those in favor? And that is carried. And the minutes of the Community Grants Committee meeting dated January 27th, 2025 be approved as circulated. Kelsey, Cam, and all those in favor, and that is so carried. So, off to new business, and we have 4 items on the agenda for new business. We have the review of the Community Improvement Program, review of Terrence Haight Program. We have some CIP extension requests and agreement modification for the CIP program as well. So let's get underway, and we'll jump right into the review of the CIP program. Amy?
Thank you very much. So as we tend to do each year, after we've gone through our initial intake, we look at the Community Improvement Program policy and the actual program structure itself, and look for making tweaks. So what has become abundantly apparent this round is the sheer amount of staff time that we have put in to try and get the applications in, but then also to get the agreements signed. So there's quite a bit of lag sometimes on properties that have been approved. In this instance, we went to committee in February with your recommendation for approval, and there are still some properties that have yet to sign their agreements to actually start the work and execute. So we did a bit of a dive into other communities, other structures of CIP programs in similar sized communities, and there seemed to be 2 different models that were prevalent. So one was a continuous intake system where council essentially would allocate a dollar figure to the committee for dispersal each year, and then it's kind of a first come, first serve, and when the funds are done, the funds are done. The second model largely seems to be a 2 intake system, a two date intake program, where there is a fall application and a spring application. And so in looking at those, we sort of did our educated guess to see what we thought worked best in the community. And we are suggesting that we look at a 2 intake date period. The bonus to that is that we would streamline some of the programs. So we would take away the ability for extensions. So right now, as is on the agenda, there's an extension that's coming in. So we would essentially try to have people be more strategic about when they're applying. So part of the challenge is right now they apply September, October, whatever date they choose. but the work isn't being done until literally 60 days out from the deadline, at which point, Ellen sends out a response saying, hey, friends, we're coming to the end of your deadline. Do you have anything you want to claim? And literally all hell breaks loose, and they say, oh my gosh, we haven't done the work. We didn't realize it was this deadline. So the idea with 2 intakes would be, if you're looking to do your work in the winter, you would apply the September timeframe or October timeframe that's proposed. If you were looking to do your work in the summer, you would apply in the March timeframe. And that sort of shortens the window for lag and lets projects actually get done that are going to get done instead of sitting on the books for 18 months, 24 months, however long. So that's the significant change. Understanding that we did try to synchronize the dates to bring everything to committee in one meeting, and we've been reasonably successful in getting gobs of applications and streamlining them through the process. So that is the only backpedaling from the last suggestion we made. But from a staff time perspective, CIP has become almost a year-round effort for Ellen to get the applications, execute the agreements, follow up on invoices. And then, of course, we get requests for the extensions, which really throw a monkey wrench into the finances because they should have been allocated in 2024, but then they come out of 2025, and then luckily that's finances issue, not mine. So we're just trying to be a little more efficient and a little more effective with the timing on that. If that's something you want to try and pursue, we'd be looking at October 31st and March 31st as the 2 dates for intake. And everything would basically be the same. You would have the October and Terrence Haight come to one meeting, and then you would have the March applications come in to one meeting as well, generally around May. So we'd probably do the second intake and the program changes. So it's not any real additional meetings. Not that this group is upset about meetings. We generally don't meet a lot. So we would look at that. And then the only thing that then changes is posting the information online and when we send out approval letters. But essentially the rest of the meat of the program would remain the same. The only other change, as I briefly mentioned for the applicant, is the getting rid of an extension. So if you don't make the deadline, you apply the next time. If you're not at that point where the work can be done, no harm, no foul. You can literally say, I'm not getting the work done, I'd like to apply again. But then there's not that extension request, which needs another meeting of the committee to meet and approve, and then go back and amend the agreements. The other part of the program that we would love to discuss today is the category of Downtown of Tomorrow. Pretty much every time this comes to the Committee of the Whole meeting and around this table, we've said it sounds a little bit like Tomorrowland at Disney. And so we're suggesting a name change and just a clarification of what types of activities could be eligible. That particular category has a maximum of $3,000 as a grant, so it's a low threshold. But we would essentially be looking at security systems and a one-time subscription fee being able to be covered. Things like app creation, online cataloging, an online booking system, or public-facing Wi-Fi for groups. So it's not necessarily just e-commerce. It's not a point-of-sale system. We would refine it into true digital items that are beneficial to the business and/or the public accessing the business. That was a lot in one go, but that's pretty much what we're proposing.
Wow. Thank you for that, Amy. So if the committee wouldn't mind, I'd like to just back up a little bit in the process, and let's deal with one of the items that, the key item, and one is staff timing and workload within the process. So it's important that the goal for this committee, I believe, is to ensure that we are reaching as many people as possible and that as many folks who can qualify and apply for either the Terrence Haight or the CIP do so. So I have no problem with the date changes, and if it's effective for the folks applying and for staff being able to implement the applications I wouldn't have a problem with that. I look out to the committee and ask for any comments. Regards, Cam?
If you have an October 31st cutoff and you've got to get those reports to us within 60 days, that takes you late into December. December is a tricky month, isn't it, around here? You know, to make this committee meet and get all the stuff together. Is September better than October, or?
Well, that is a fabulous question. Theoretically, November's fine too. The thought was, if we just looked at 6 months, and so we were trying to find a period in there. But I mean, I could bring the report within 90 days, which would then put us into January, which is typically when we meet. So I mean, I can switch that from 60 to 90 without a problem, if that's easier.
Would, as in Cam's suggestion, would November and April be a problem?
The only challenge we find, so right now we open applications September and we allow people to apply until December, and we find that everybody runs the clock down. So the only challenge with November is then we're getting into sort of the start of Christmas season. So I probably would go forward instead of backward, or I would extend the request date.
Okay. Cam?
When do the contractors want to work? If we're having trouble getting these guys, are guys looking for work for November, December, or they're looking for work January, February?
So, good question. So much of it depends on the weather. This year, I would say most people are looking indoor finishing work probably January, February. April is probably one of the harder months. So we see a fair amount of construction projects scheduled to start May. Mostly it's in internal work, just because if we have 14 feet of snow like we did this year, they can't get to do foundation work or anything like that. And some of the facade work, you wouldn't be able to have machinery on the sidewalks for January, February. So it's depending on the season, I would say March to May is your prime time, and then September to November, again, depending on what the weather's like.
Councillor Morphy, you were having a question?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, I was thinking this is the old-fashioned way where you wait in line, but no, it's now you're currently speaking, so turn it off. Yeah, I have a bunch of questions. First, Amy, please, why are we chasing these people? Like, why are we using resources? Why can't we just set out, you've been awarded this fund, this is the deadline, you do nothing by then, the money goes away. Thank you very much for your application. Why are we spending, calling them, and your deadline's coming up? And if it's, we're giving them money. I don't think this is for us to chase.
You would think giving away money is a very easy and seamless thing. Yeah. So the reality is we see a fair amount of people that would have done the work and would know about the program, but just it's not on their radar. So, or they come to us after the fact and they say, oh, well, is it retroactive? I put a new sign up. And so part of it is us looking at properties that we know there either might be concerns or complaints that have come in. We know there's a visible improvement that could be done. There might be new business owners that are coming in. So we're doing this sort of, did you know that you are a part of this location? You can apply for this. So some of it is the education period. And some of it, honestly, the business owners are just busy enough that they want the money, they want to have the improvement, but the doing of the application is daunting to them. And so lots of times Ellen tries to work through the application to get as much information as we can to even let them know if we think it could fly. I honestly don't understand the gap in getting people to sign the agreement, because that's kind of like, hey, you've got free money, like, woo, away we go. I think again, it's just they've applied in September, October, they find out in January, February, and at that point, there's been enough of a gap that it's sort of like, oh yeah, okay, we'll do that, but they're gearing up for the coming season. So the chasing, and truly we want the fund to be successful, right? There are lots of properties that have done improvements that if we hadn't chased them, they might not have been beautified in the way they have been. But it is a lot more connection than we anticipated. So it would be this model would be like a hybrid. We would do some outreach and education, but if they don't get the application in, then the response would be, well, you've missed the deadline. If you're going to do work, there's another intake this day. And then if they don't get the two intake If they don't put an application in within those 2 intakes, that's all we can do.
Thank you. So we need to exercise a little self-control and let them take ownership of their problems. Okay. Now, the second question was why the 2 dates versus, I'm really interested in the policy that first come, first serve. We've got this much money, as of January 1, doors open, make your applications. Now, would that change the committee structure? When you had an application, we would have to meet like literally every month. And when you didn't have any applications that month, we would not be required to meet. So that would be more of your time. I get that. But the complaint I get is I need to do where it's June the 1st and my door blew out and I need a new door and I want to apply, but I got to wait till October and then it'll get approved in January. It's easier for me to just fix the darn door and forget about the grant process. So when the bad things happen, they happen, and they aren't March 31st or October 31st. So how was the decision made to go to the 2 date versus just open-ended?
I would love to say pure anxiety. So the only concern that I have with a single allocation is what happens if you get to July and somebody really needs the money in August and it's important, but we're out of money? Because it could be that something has happened, right? The other side of it is that most of the allocations for ongoing intake is around $200,000. So we would have to figure out from a budget perspective how we get that dollar amount assigned through council. Because currently I think we're putting in 80,000 in capital. I think we put in 70 last year. 80 is scheduled for this year coming. So it would be a bigger conversation with the allocation. But in theory, there's nothing stopping it. Bracebridge does ongoing intake, so does Huntsville. The other component to the continuous intake is there may be categories that you as a committee are comfortable with staff approving. So you might say, okay, we want to see facade improvements, structural improvements, rehabilitation or commercial development, but we don't care about signs. We don't care, not that you don't care, but you don't need to spend time vetting a sign, digital cameras, landscaping. So it may be that at the beginning of the year, committee says, okay, round numbers, you have $200,000. Staff, we're going to allow you to go ahead and approve up to $5,000 in signage, $5,000 in landscaping, and $5,000 in cameras. Thank you. There we go. And so we as staff would come to you and say, here are the applications we got. Here's the amounts that we've approved. Here's what's left in the fund. But then the bigger ticket items, the $15,000, $20,000 items would come to committee for review. And then, yes, you would have to meet more frequently. But we would be more in touch saying, yes, there's an application. No, there's not.
So if we went to a continuous and you're worried about running out of money in July or August, which technically we already are out of money if you can, you're not going to get approved till January. Why don't we allocate like 40,000 for the first half of the year and 40,000 for the second half of the year? So there's always going to be money available, and of course there'd be exemptions. I know the deadlines seem to be daunting for people. Like it's, oh my God, I got to do it by such and such a date. Pardon my language. So that is one thing to ponder as a committee. The second, when you brought up the budget, is because I'm getting inundated with strong mayor language, and the council no longer has control of the budget. That is her worship. And I don't know, it says approved by council during the budget. I don't even know if that applies anymore. We're told that she doesn't have a choice. She has to manage the money. Like, it's not a council decision anymore. So I don't know where you stand with that as well, but I like both ideas, the continuous, allocating the money years rather than the dates, so people can apply when they need to, and again, the question about if council's making this decision at all to allocate the funds.
Okay. I mean, I would assume we as staff will develop our recommendations for the budget, and then that'll be vetted through CAO and mayor to make sure it's in line. So we could make those recommendations, but yes, final power would be different this year around.
Cam?
disagree with the continuous intake. I think part of the value of the committee is being able to compare a bunch of applications at the same time. And you'd lose that if they just dribble in. That's my perspective.
I will make a comment on that, and I think knowing that we've set the process up, that the money is to be allocated at a one-time shot, it gives the businesses, and this is where we're struggling, and this is where your comment comes in, we're struggling with businesses putting together the plan without involving staff as much as they are, which has been a hindrance, and actually performing the work and getting things done. And we're not sure where the ball is being dropped on the business owner. I'm not a big fan of the continuous either. I think the program, the way it was set up and the way it was designed, is for people to be proactive and know that at a certain time of the year, they know within their business what they have to do to improve their facade or their doors or their inside structure, their entrance, whatever it may be. They know that that's coming up within that year. And any good business person, which we have a lot of them here in this community, knows from one year to the next what they need to do within their business. So therefore, the money's allocated at a one-time shot. They can program their financing and kick in what they need to kick in, take part of the CIP program, and get the job done. We're struggling trying to get them to implement that, and that's where I believe is the fall down. If we were to take money away and say, okay, let's do it on a continual basis, I don't think the way things are going, the money would ever be spent, because we'd still have the same problem. These folks wouldn't get the work done, they wouldn't get the plans in, they wouldn't hire the contractors, and it would go by the wayside. I think there's more structure in what we're doing. We just have to find how we can implement it so that staff are not burdened, and that the ownership is put back on the business community to follow up and get the work done.
Can I just ask one?
Absolutely, Kels. Just
Oh, you know what? I see it's over here. Sorry. I can use
I'll move
this
you over.
one. Okay. There you go.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, now it's working. For clarification, can they apply after the work has been done, right? Like they could do the work for some things and then, okay, no. So it is reimbursement based. So they have
Okay.
to submit an estimate, do the work, submit the invoice, get the cash.
Okay, so it's not something where like, oh, we've done this sign, here's our invoice for it, we could get reimbursed now. Okay, I don't mind the idea of the biannually because I think it gives people kind of an idea, timing wise, like coming out of winter, oh, maybe our sign got wrecked by the snow this winter and now we're gonna apply for a new one, or going into summer, we're looking to have this done. It kind of gives them a time frame so they know what they're looking for in that season more so.
Joe, you had another comment, I think? No? Go ahead. No, please.
No, I'm fine with twice a year too. I just wondered, maybe changing it up a little bit more, and I don't know why we're chasing these people. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I don't think this is our problem. I think this is their problem.
100%.
We've awarded you the money, here it is, and call them in 18 months, say, thank you very much. Have you spent it? Have you got any invoices? Okay, it's gone. I might even shorten the 18 months,
No, and I totally 100% agree with you, Counselor. I don't understand. I know from the 33 years that I was in business, if somebody offered me money, I would ensure that money was being properly spent, and invoices were submitted, and things got fixed, I believe. Yes? Absolutely.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I just want to intervene as well in terms of discussion when it comes to 2 meeting days throughout the year. During the term of the committee, it'd be okay with the exception of an election year, because subcommittees technically end or go into moratorium in June for the regular election. So next year, if you were to implement this, the committee would technically not be able to meet after June. And on top of that, if you were to have any, I guess, future sort of changes for the committee, we need to also change the terms of reference. And yeah, I think that's all I had to mention. Yeah.
Well, that sheds a whole new light on things for this committee going forward, because next year will be an election year. So I would think that the status quo, we would stay for this year coming, knowing, and thank you for that, that makes great sense. And then we would put this idea on the agenda for the new committee to discuss. And it would maybe be built into the program that we could do a continuous if the new committee decided that they wanted to do committee, other than the last year, which would be election year, then it would go back to Councilor Moore.
May I? Yeah. Putting things on hold generally don't end well because they're forgotten. Can we not discuss having this policy begin October 31st, 2026? That would be after the election. And then we go into the if everybody's happy with this biannual system versus keeping with the status quo, couldn't we look at doing that?
Procedurally, the policy is scheduled for review by the new committee in their first year of term. So, I mean, theoretically, you probably could, but it might then be changed or modified within a short amount of time by the new committee.
So your idea can be put into writing to be addressed by staff. However, we would continue on with the status quo as we have right now because we are going into 2026 as an election year. And that would come up for the new committee within the 2026 to discuss as per whether we want to do it as a two-date application or a continuously application on the CIP. Yeah? Are you okay with that? Good. Thank you. Cam? Kelsey?
Okay.
Thank you. Good point. And I will ask our deputy clerk, committees cannot tie up future committees? Is that I know council couldn't tie future councils into things. Is a committee under that same type of restriction?
I'm not considered a lawyer, so I wouldn't be able to say whether the same rules apply for committees affecting the decision-making of a next committee term. I don't know whether it be actually as strenuous or as strong, but I would say, though, that if you were to make a decision for this term, it would probably end at your term, and then the next committee could say, we can make any changes if we wanted to. So,
Okay.
yeah. Nothing stops the next committee from making any changes that you made.
Okay.
That's what I gotta say.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor?
So the only other item is the downtown of tomorrow. So we were suggesting calling it digital downtown. If you want to go ahead with that and the clarification points, then we would have to pass a resolution for that, which does go to council, committee of the whole. So because we're amending a plan that exists, so we would essentially just go in with refined items and the proposed new name, and then that change would be reflected in the plan and on our application forms and our guidelines. Thoughts on that one?
Well, personally, downtown and future are two key words that I think should be in the wording of it all. I don't know how, I'm concerned when I drive through downtown Gravenhurst and what I am looking at and what I'm seeing, and I know that council's been very proactive in shaping some of the real estate offices that have been opened and things like that, but I'm concerned, and you know, some of us were around when the downtown revitalization started back in 2010 and 2012, and Amy, you were a big part of that. And I think everything we do as far as wording and progress is needed to help the folks of downtown and what they're doing. So I'm all for doing the e-commerce, so to speak, and cameras and helping the folks down there. I just want to make sure we have the right wording for it, and that it makes a stamp. So, any other comments from Councillor Morphy? You have your mic on, I can see that.
I do. We expanded the CIP area, right? So the word downtown doesn't hit with me as much, just because when I think of downtown, I think of not the Wharf, not Bethune. I think of just downtown. So that's one I struggle a bit with. I'm thinking more towards business. I don't know, but I just don't think it's downtown of tomorrow or digital downtown. I'm sorry. I wish I had more time to really think on that one.
I'll go back to my history, and it was the focus of our whole existence was downtown. So I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate that. That's good. Yes, Cam?
You know, downtown tomorrow just opens up a whole thing that says, well, it could be anything can fit in that bin. You know, it seems like it's e-commerce. You know, do we get e-commerce into the area and say, okay, you've got an e-commerce improvement that goes in this area?
Yes. To your point, correct. The only thing that is not e-commerce is security cameras.
Sorry, so currently it's downtown of tomorrow? Mm-hmm. And then you're proposing digital downtown? Okay.
I'm proposing, all I have is a note that says, we generally speak about downtown of tomorrow as this nebulous thing. And so
Okay.
is there a better name that the committee would
Gotcha.
like? And if so, we can change it and take it forward with any other changes at the
And
same
this
time.
is the name for the CIP, sorry, or just the e-commerce side of it?
It's just for that particular category. So
Okay.
right now it talks about public Wi-Fi, digital readiness assessment.
Yep.
Which, when this was written, it was like, ooh, e-commerce websites, woo,
Right.
tomorrow. And then digital surveillance.
Okay.
Cam?
E-commerce and technology.
Sure. I'm open to whatever y'all want to call it, because we brainstormed and couldn't come up with anything exciting either.
And it's going to come up with something very simple, I know it. But e-commerce and, is there anything related to the fact of a retail name or which would encompass the south end, the downtown, the wharf, the north end through Bethune? I mean, can we use gateway of e-commerce and?
I mean, you can use whatever you like, whether or not it,
Sticks?
yeah. I'm trying to think internally, we talked about, one of the ideas was software and security. We talked about smart, like from an technology intelligence. We literally came up dry, and I just went to the alliteration well and went digital downtown. But I'm easy. All the other categories, for example, outdoor patio grant, signage improvement grant, like they don't specify a geographic location. But to Mr. Watson's point, when this first came out, it was focused on the downtown as part of the downtown revitalization project. So that's where a lot of these names came from.
Gravenhurst e-commerce, technical, or, future? I don't know. Future is now. I mean, we need this now. And the good folks at Gravenhurst and their businesses need this now. But
I will ask ChatGPT.
we're going to AI, folks. Just stand by.
It is.
What is? I'm sorry? Push mic in.
I don't really want to say this out loud, but Copilot's on our Outlook email. It's a tab at the bottom. If you need a little help, you just push a button and
Yeah.
there it is. So maybe it's Copilot.
Uh-oh, we're coming up some doozies. I can see that.
Well, some of them are quite technology based. I don't think you're gonna like any of these.
Okay, let us decide.
I mean, digital decom doesn't sound bad to me.
Let's try round 2 here. Tech Town, Digital District, Silicon Square. Yeah.
Territory.
Yeah.
Alliteration.
Okay, let's see. Round 3, let's see here. So, e-commerce security, trust and trade, secure commerce, next commerce, commerce innovation,
Secure commerce and innovation.
digital trade and safety grant. That's
Well, that,
secure.
What about opening up indirect commercial spending?
I think safety and technology, I think those are, we're doing technology and the cameras cover safety. I mean, they're doing face recognition, they're doing, the OPP's using all our stores.
Commercial safety and
Technology,
technology.
safety and technology.
Commercial safety and technology.
Commercial safety and technology.
Is that what you said? I like that.
He added commercial.
Yeah, and then, again, that helps us identify. Yeah,
Okay. Commercial safety and technology grant. Okay. Super. Resolution wise, yeah, okay.
Did we want to make any change to the terms of the grant?
There are bulleted point items. So, yes, I would think we do free public access Wi-Fi.
Sorry.
So we give examples. I would update the examples. I don't know whether you feel that needs to be resolutioned or not.
Does it change the substance of?
no, it doesn't change the structure of the,
No.
no.
Okay, so it's really just the name, which will affect the application and the
Okay.
policy.
Something else, good. It was a very simple and short one.
We're just putting the resolution together. Yeah,
If we're still taking questions about the CIP program, I noticed in the Terrence Haight, it specifies the committee members. Doesn't say that for the CIP program.
Correct. So, there is another policy for the Community Grants Committee, which states who you are and what you review. The CIP originally, when it started, there was a hybrid of staff and council, and then it became a committee under the next council's term. So I think it's been left vague just because it could become a hybrid. If we went to continuous intake, for example, then you would still make the ultimate decisions, but then staff would be implemented, so we'd have multiple lists of who does what. So we've kept it a little high level, but the ultimate community grants policy specifies both of these programs as your purview.
I hate to add more work to you, but we make these decisions, grant this money, and we never hear back. Like, it all just comes to you. Is there some way that we could get feedback on what was done with the previous year's money?
Yep, for sure we can. We do take before and after pictures where we can. We do visual inspections, and we have sort of ongoing tally. So for sure, that could be included in either a quarterly, biannual or yearly perspective.
A report goes to somebody, we just wanted to see it, that's all.
Yep.
Last point, in the Terrence Age, we make them put up a sign saying that this has been funded by the Grave Merchant. We don't have that in the CIP?
Other way around. So CIP, they are required to put a sign up for 4 weeks, I believe. Terrence Haight, they are not required to do that. So the policy for CIP does say you must have a sign and you must recognize it. Terrence Haight, when we get to that, we are looking at strengthening that for the Terrence Haight grants.
I have a question in regards to, part of it falls on what Cameron has brought forward, that we don't see what happens at the end and things like that. Is there possibility of the committee helping out and going out and looking at some of these sites that are being worked on, or is that above and beyond the process of the committee?
Theoretically, it would be above and beyond in that it's getting into administrative territory because the agreement specifies that staff is accountable for inspecting, signing off on, and issuing payment.
Okay.
Not that you couldn't come with us if you really wanted to, but it's a bit of a gray admin area.
Okay, no, that's totally understandable. But it would be nice, and, you know, I take up on what Cam said. If we give a business $10,000 to upgrade their patio, I'd like to go and sit on that patio and have a look around and see where the tax dollars of Gravenhurst are spent and how well it looks, and take it all in.
Yeah, I mean, we could easily let you know when we have executed payments and done inspections that here's a list of the final projects that are done, and or here's some that are outstanding. They generally dribble in. So it could be that we simply give you a heads up at July, here's where we're at with the projects to date and the projects to be done. So you've got a bit of a tally, and you're not going to one location and then waiting 4 weeks and going to another location.
So then, going back to what Councillor Morphy has brought up on, people have to start taking more responsibility on getting this work done and getting these things in and getting, and helping staff and take the burden off of staff. I think on your point, we need to start strengthening the wording of the spending of this money and the implementation of the onus is now on the business owner and not staff to follow up to make sure all this stuff is done. And, I just think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
If we're giving somebody money, that they've got to step up to the plate.
If I may, I have one question about the process, and you're talking about more reports and reporting back to what's been done, what hasn't. What is the natural process when a project comes to an end? Could you not just send us a little quick email saying, just add it to the end of, when you close the file, you let committee know? And then no quarterly reports or annual reports, or just
Yeah.
Great, that one's done.
Theoretically, the final step in the process is when I approve the actual payment notice. And so Ellen requests payment, I say approve, she gets a notification that says, hey, Amy actually approved this. So at that point, either one of us could send a note and say, it's done.
Perfect. Yeah. I know, personally, I would like to go out and have a look at.
I might, once I get the notification.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's great for the business owner, and I wouldn't be obliged not to go up and introduce myself as a member of this great committee and say, job well done, guys, very, very good. So, absolutely. Yeah,
I can easily tell you that Old
no, I
Mill
wouldn't do that.
Family Restaurant is, I think, the last project that's being completed, so they did a facade improvement and sign. So if you're downtown, Old Mill is the last one that has come through, and I believe I just approved another one that I'm gapping on, but, so there are a couple that have just finished.
Rusty Bite? Did they get finished?
No.
Okay. Yes, I saw the work being done on the old mill, and it's looking good. It's looking good, so. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna do the resolution. Just have a look at it there, Joe. Okay, sorry. Be it resolved that the committee grants committee endorsed the renaming of the Downtown of Tomorrow Grant to Commercial Safety and Technology Grant in the Community Improvement Plan Policy. Well written. Mover, yep, and Kelsey, and all those in favor? Joe.
Joe, okay, thank you.
And everybody's in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, you want to run, get some water? So our next item will be the review of the Terrence Haight Assistance Program. And Amy, I'll let you take it away on updates and.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there's not a lot to change with Terrence Haight. What we are looking, essentially what has come through for Terrence Haight is some projects are applying. And originally, the timeline was that sort of within a year. So if you applied, the policy previously stated, you had to have your final reports in by November 30th of the next granting year. And so it basically meant you applied this year and you had 1 year to do the funding, to use the funding. With Terrence Haight being an advance of cash and then justification of how things had been spent. The comments that we heard was, well, could we have more time? Is it only a year? So there was confusion around that. So what we are suggesting in the program is that in the robust agreement that we sign, we would change the November 30th date to a project-aligned date. So for example, if, let's see if I can come up with a real example here. So let's say YWCA applies for Girls Unplugged, and we vet it in March, and they have to do it within the school year. It may be that they've missed the window to be part of the curriculum for that year, so they have no choice but to do it for the next year. But they have to apply now to get the funding, to get the approval, to get the space on the curriculum. So what we're proposing is adding to the application your project dates, a start and an end date, and then the agreement would reflect that the use of those funds. So it would be applied for, scheduled, and implemented in the granting year, but it might not finish until the next calendar year, but the money would still be eligible. The applicants would still be required to submit a final report before they can apply for any additional funds. They would still sign an agreement that says it must be done by this date. We then would have more of a hard timeline to be able to say, okay, this is the time that you said you were going to be finished. We now are checking in to see, did you do it? Where's your final report? What were your metrics? So just to try and clear up some of those multiple year projects that are not applying now because the time frame in the policy is not conducive to those applications. And we are seeing, like, we generally see the same Terrence Haight applications over and over and over again. And so if that's a hindrance to applying, we'd like to try and make it that they could apply. And then we work with them to see what the final end date is. And then the report is due within, I think it's 60 days from the end date of that project. So that's really the only big change. We do currently have a eligibility clause that says you must recognize the town or the fund. And so in the agreement, we would put more wording in to say a logo on the website, a logo on the program, mention in press release. Right now, there isn't any language that really dictates how we are to be recognized and what the actual moniker is. So some people say, oh, we got Terrence Haight funding, but that might not include the town of Gravenhurst and vice versa. So we're looking at strengthening that language as well. And the only other thing is, in the reporting requirements, it stated that everything had to go to the treasurer. We are changing that to program coordinator or designate, meaning if I'm not here, Jennifer could take it. If Jennifer's not here, I could take it, and it doesn't go to the treasurer and then sit in their queue, and we don't know if we've got a final report received. And that's it.
That's it? Okay, thank you. Comments? No? So,
I just have new business to discuss, but in terms of project deadlines and dates,
Yep,
that's,
okay.
I'm fine with that. My only question is, if it was somebody like a GAP, where it's not, it's year-round, do they just put Jan 1 to December 31 and in a calendar, just say the calendar year? Do they have to designate start-stop dates?
No, I think, excuse me, I think we would take ongoing as an answer if it's sort of operationally. But for some of the project-specific things, the deadline would be, like a timeline would be great, so that we know. If it's a GAP, for example, would apply for taxi program. So they wouldn't know when the end of the funds were. We would just say, you've got to use all of our funds before you apply again. So let us know when that happens. But for some of the project specific where we know they're going to spend it in 3 weeks, it would be great to know that timeline.
okay. Well, I think we're good.
Okay.
Resolution?
Resolution for that one? I don't know, you tell me.
changes though. Are you needing their stamp of approval?
I think in order to refer it to council.
I'll need all that, those changes then.
All of them?
Yeah. Want to be clean about the resolution?
Can we do a as shown and attached?
Schedule.
Or staff take the recommended changes to committee of the whole, and then I put them in that report?
1 sec.
Please hold. Please hold for an administrative moment.
Because the resolution has to be
So the resolution, as has been written, is be it resolved that the Community Grants Committee endorse staff's housekeeping changes to the Terrence Haight Financial Assistant Program as outlined in Schedule A in the staff report.
But still directive.
It's still directive.
Why don't you take housekeeping out, the recommended?
Recommended housekeeping changes?
No, recommended changes to the Terrence Haight.
Staff's recommended changes to their, yeah.
Work for you guys?
Works for me. Mover? Cam? Kelsey? Seconder? Yeah. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We're on, you had a question, was it, we're going to go to item 3. Is that fall into where your question came?
Mine
Or-
is completely new business.
Okay.
So wherever that falls into, you let me know.
We'll do it at the end. Item number 3 is the CIP extension request. Amy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, we have Daniel Dutka, who is, has applied a couple of times, so it's 181 Bay Street. And so they are requesting an extension. Their application was 2023, 2023, I believe, and had to end in 2004. What has happened is they have said outdoor work could not be completed. So they received structural improvement grant, landscaping grant, facade improvement, and residential conversion. And so they basically had indicated the outdoor work could not be completed last year due to time and weather constraints. And the interior kitchen, the contractor was unfortunately unable to finish due to an injury, surgery, and rehab. So at this point in time, they should have finished at the end of 2024. And they are looking to have the work completed by the end of this summer. And they would be claiming back around $8,000 in work. So they're doing at least $16,000 of work on the property. So from a visual perspective, it is the Gadsby building just before the end of the first block of Bay Street. So there has been significant improvement on that building. That's it there. And so that is the basis of the extension. Then unfortunately the contractor was injured and could not complete the work. If you find this to be acceptable, then we would simply modify from October 31st, 2024 as the deadline to October 31st, 2025, and indicate that if the work was not done by then, they could reapply for additional funding down the road.
Comments from the committee? Joe?
I struggle with the landscaping to start with, grant, but it's part of the program, and so I go. But weather, that was the reason landscaping didn't get done was weather?
Some facade improvement and some outdoor work. So exterior of the building and exterior land.
But in what regards to weather? I just, that part I don't get. And the contractor, do they have the obligation to mitigate and hire another contractor? Or are they required to just wait for this one to? I'm finding holes in this, and I would tend not to extend, but I'm willing to listen to everybody else.
Cam?
What's the date of his request? When did he send it in?
The initial request came in end of 2024. So they were submitting all of their paid invoices in compliance with the agreement, and at that point indicated that they would like to talk about an extension. So they were within the parameters of their original agreement for letting us know.
But this was a 2023 application, so they've had 2 years.
They did have substantial time to complete it, yes. Now, they did, in fairness, they did submit, a fair amount of work was completed. So I think they had 12 or 13 invoices submitted, so they did do a fair amount of work. But the last bit, which is, so for example, they did furnace upgrade, they did interior structural improvements. They were left with, so they have some brickwork, landscaping, and kitchen and doorway left to do on their residential conversion. So that's the $7,600 there.
Committee, any comments? Cam?
You want to tighten up the timing, make them do it by the end of August?
I can extend whatever the committee would like to extend, if at all.
I mean, the money's been committed, and I understand things can happen, and it's kind of frustrating. I get that. We're caught between a rock and a hard place here, committee.
I think the end of August is like a good meet in the middle. Like, we're extending, but we're not giving you till October 31st, was it? It's like a halfway point.
Yeah, mid-September, I don't know. End of September. Can you live with September?
September 1st? Sure. It's kind of the end of August.
And then that's a hard stop. There's no further extensions after that. That will be the clear language we put forward. That's September 1. After that, no more invoices will be accepted.
Yes, the correspondence I had before was, we will bring your request forward to committee. If they deny it, then you can reapply in September to the new intake. So the language would be the same back.
But that's the point. They can reapply.
Yes.
And it sends a message that, you know, you just can't dilly-dally and the town's going to be dragging the books and dragging the money. I'm sticking with denial. I'm going on that, and they can reapply.
And going back to your point, I think it's important that the committee puts stronger wording, or the staff have stronger wording going out, that this has to be done within the time frame of what the grants are slated for. Absolutely.
And back to the resources that are chasing them and all the rest of it. If
Yep.
the language was stronger and, okay.
Yep. Cam?
So his money, that if we deny this, his money goes back into the pot, he reapplies and gets his money back. So nobody else loses.
Correct.
And there is an opportunity that the committee may not grant that at the time if it goes back in. Is that correct?
That is correct. The only plea I would make is that we as staff, it took us a fair amount of time to sort out what was owed to them because of the timing of the grant. 2023 payments come out in 24, so in fairness to them, staff has had this for a few months without being able to get back to them to say, do the work. So the work could have been done quicker, but it took me time to figure out what exactly was left owing because of the way our payments and our finance system tracks things. So if you felt it in your heart, even though it is very close to the deadline, staff on this one could have brought this forward sooner had we been able to sort out the financial elements.
So are you asking to put that little time frame that you had before it came to committee on the extension of what committees come up with in September and go by that?
I would think September 1st is a fair timeline, and with the communication, if it's not done, then reapplication is your option.
Okay. Committee's fine with that?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, committee. Yeah. So here is our resolution. Mover and a seconder. Kelsey, Joe. Whereas the Community Grants Committee has reviewed the extension request with respect to application 2023-15 Duca 181 Bay Street. Be it resolved that the Community Grants Committee recommend approval to the extension to council on the grounds that work be completed by September 1st, 2021. Or 2025, sorry. Yeah, falling backwards here. All those in favor?
Amendment.
Joe, sorry.
I really want the wording in there that says, "and no further extensions be offered, be granted." Or like after the September, completed by September 1, and that no further extensions be.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, but it says September 1, 2025. That's it. I don't think we need to strengthen the wording. It's September 20, that's what the resolution says.
They just asked for an extension from a date that was resolute as well. Is that clear enough, Amy?
I think between the resolution and the formal correspondence we send, yes. I think in the formal correspondence, we'll make it clear the
I
timeline.
understand where you're coming from, and I understand your frustration on this particular item, but I think the resolution is strong enough for the wording, okay? Staff agree? Okay.
Call it.
All those in favor? Yes, thank you. CIP agreement modification request.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this last item is a 2025 application. So 2025-04 Dock of the Bay. The application was submitted and approved when we met earlier. The question, comment, so the application had some facade improvements, some landscaping, some interior work that needed to be done. The original application was for the Dock of the Bay building, which I believe is 1113 Bay Street. And the question has come back, could the funds be allocated between two buildings that are owned by the same owner? And so some of the beautification work is on 918 Bay Street, which is the former Muscabilly's building. And then some additional work would go to Dock of the Bay. So they're looking to spend more money on the Muscabilly's building and then the remaining funds on Dock of the Bay. It doesn't change the allocations, doesn't change the work that is being done. There would just be more work done at the other location that has sat vacant for a number of years and that there have been some concerns and complaints about. And then the remaining funds would go to the Dock of the Bay building. From a staff perspective, I think it makes sense to just include that wording in agreements and in inspections that we would look at the two properties. Essentially, you're getting 2 for 1. And really, the Muscabilly's, the 918 Bay, needs more focus than the Dock of the Bay building. So as staff, we would go ahead and say that's a good idea, but as committee, we're looking for input.
Quickly saying, if somebody were to apply, they have a building and they applied to the CIP grant and were awarded the monies, and then halfway through they decided, well, I've got another building and it still falls in the CIP, can I get that work done over there? And can I use that money, but it never showed up on the application, committee never got to review, we don't know what's going on with the other building. I'm having serious issues here. Committee, please. Cam?
I don't think you can give the recipient that much freedom to move money around, and it just opens up a can of worms. I would disagree with it.
We're
Absolutely.
at the same viewpoint today. That's wonderful.
We probably have a lot more than you could give us credit for. Kelsey? Yeah, I know a little bit of what's going on in the history down there, and I understand the work's got to be done, but is the building up for sale?
Not formally.
No, so. Anyways, I think we're on a denial of that. Do we need a resolution for that? No. That's just direction for staff.
Just a question though for you, because I think that, well, maybe I'm wrong, but I think majority of the ones or all the ones that we approved are like actual businesses that are operating. Is there anything operating out of there currently?
There is, so the front unit is not occupied. Polar Dip is still operating out of that building, and there are a couple of units occupied upstairs. So yes, even though it would be really great if the patio unit was occupied.
It's a real asset going to waste, is what it is.
This is a discussion for another day, Chair.
Yes. I mean, it's a beautiful patio and a beautiful spot, so enough said.
But if it was approved, it would.
Correct.
So denial, we don't need.
Okay, you're clarified?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. So that concludes the 4 items that we had. Amy?
Yep.
And Councillor Morphy, you had some new business that you wanted to bring forward?
I did. I've wanted to talk about this for a bit on the Terrence Haight. What I hear from the charities is the application process is onerous. The financial statements, revenues, expenses, the current year's budget for the organization, financial plan for how the funds will be used is still valid, but could we not simplify it to just amend it to, they're qualified as a not-for-profit organization rather than having to go to their accountant and get, like the YW, the YM, like that money's in, money's out. It's a lot for them to go through, whereas I'm a not-for-profit. I mean, I'm the Sally Ann, I'm the food bank. The money we take in, we generally spend, and we might have some, but I'm just wondering if we could simplify, if we'd have any opinions about that process. Thank you.
I'll jump in, and it's not really an opinion, it's when the program was put together. And we're talking about, in the Terrence Haight program, I mean, that's money's now operated and processed through the town of Gravenhurst, and we wanted to put rules in so that everyone felt secure and comfortable on how that monies was being dispersed. And I know that if somebody were to come in and not-for-profit and kind of work out of their garage and things like that, we were kind of trying to protect the monies going to something that didn't seem that it was legit. So I understand where you're coming from, and I understand it's onerous for the groups putting together
And staff.
the program, so,
And staff, because we're trying to streamline things, and if it is John Deere in his garage, I think we'd recognize that, but, the curling club, all the people that come, we know. I know
it's hard to separate.
It's a fine line, but it's a lot of work to put down your
No question
entire
it is.
year's finances, ins and outs, just to ask for $2,000 for a ramp to access your door.
Amy?
It is fair to say we've heard the same feedback, for sure. I think part of the shift in the program for us as staff has been more flexibility around those terms. So when the policy first came in, finance was the leading charge of this program. And in order for them to allow unincorporated not-for-profits, they added this extra layer of financial accountability. So if there were 10 of you operating out of somebody's garage providing mobility equipment to seniors, there was the justification of, well, how are you going to spend this money, and you're going to actually buy canes and walkers, and you're not going to go have a margarita party. But what we've noticed is that some organizations operating within another organization, even though they're legitimate not-for-profits, struggle to get the information. So as this has transitioned from a finance-led directive to economic development-led directive, we have started working with the groups to try and give us what you have, give us, information. We're not asking for a group to go and spend $5,000 to give us audited financials. We would take a letter of recommendation or clarification from an accountant and information. So we left this in despite us as staff even struggling with some of the financial documents needed and what we get, with the understanding that as long as they can demonstrate that they are a credible, trustworthy organization and the committee feels comfortable with it, we accept their application. There have been some in the past where this level of financial information has led the committee to not give funds out because there's clearly demonstrated a profit or an investment of some size. So we still look for this where we can, but there is more leniency on the organization applying. And then we bring it to you with as much information as we can, and you ultimately make the decision. So even though it is in there, there is that flexibility built in depending on the applicant, because it is onerous for a lot of the smaller groups that really need the money.
Cam?
All we're looking for is the local entities' financials. We don't want to know the major YMCA, what their numbers are.
Correct.
We just want to know that the local YMCA has raised this much money, they need this much money, and this is how much they're going to lose if they don't get it.
Yeah, and the YW is a great example of that. When we look at something like comfy cases or robotics, the entity applying would be submitting the entire year's financials. So like comfy cases, for example, went through, parents with children with cancer, big long name. So the financials they submitted were for the whole organization, and it was like, oh, because they as a group of volunteers don't have a bookkeeper, but they're sanctioned by that group. Same with robotics. They have a rough budget that they give, but really if you pulled it out, if you looked at the TLDSB, you'd be like, why would we grant them? So there's a few rare cases where they don't have it, but in those cases, we found that they're people that really could and should benefit from the money, from the grant. So we sort of finesse it as staff, and then where there's a question, we bring it forward.
Joe?
Do you feel there's people not applying because of this? Because I feel that is the case. I'm not worried about those that have gotten around it and figured it out and worked with you. I'm talking about the ones that look at the requirements and go,
Yeah, 100%. There are people that get into the twofold. They get into the application process and they feel it's daunting, or they're being proactive, but they have only been so proactive and they run out of time on the clock to get what they need back to us. We've also had a few groups that have declined the money based on the reporting information and confines of the agreement. So we see it both ways. And really the agreement, I mean, it's robust, but it's not. In the agreement, it says we have the right to look at people's books, and that puts off a lot of people. For different reasons. So we've seen it both ways. People who the financial aspect is too daunting to start, and people who say, well, we don't really want you to go look in our books. And as staff, we say, we have yet to go look at somebody's books. I mean, this is not high on our priority list, especially for a $2,000 grant, but it's in the agreement. So we've continued to refine it. And I mean, Jennifer gets most of the people calling and tries to walk through, what can you give me? And then she gets information that comes to me, and then we vet it through finance. So there's all these back checks. But yeah, it is off-putting for some groups, when it's one or two or three people.
Go ahead.
all right, so do we want to keep it? Or do we want to just say you're a registered not-for-profit or service organization and eliminate all this? You're smiling, right? Eliminate all the financial, because in the agreement, it says we have your rights to your books. So we do have that back door if we needed it.
If we were to recommend a change to that, then we would have to put a resolution to go through, be approved by council, correct? We could not make the change here at this level. We would recommend that, we need to water it down. But we would, I personally would like to see something that maybe not as in-depth as what you have, but more along the lines of, so that we can get more applications, that people don't feel burdened by the process.
So technically, we could make that change by putting the words in registered. There will be some people that are excluded. So off the top of my head, I'm thinking of the Gravenhurst Women's Group. That's the only one I can think of at the moment. But there may be some not-for-profit groups that are just not registered that way.
So at this meeting, could we refer back to staff to investigate the wording and consider replacing the financials? Or are we too deep into the process that the applications are going to be coming up that we haven't got time?
At this point, we have not updated for the next intake, so there's still time. You have a resolution with recommended changes going forward. So I suppose theoretically this is one of them, if that makes sense from an order perspective.
I would just like to give you the chance, I would like the change to see something happen if committee's on board. But I don't want to eliminate anybody because I used the wrong word.
Right.
Registered or
Right.
not-for-profit or service organization, charity. You have to apply to,
Okay, would it be then, instead of putting in registered not-for-profit, which would be limiting, really it's the depth of the financials? So could it be addressed with applicants, under the requirements in the policy, applicants must provide to staff's discretion? And then the 3 items? Like, so if they have it, great. If they don't, then it's on us to feel that it's, like, when we're coming to you, then we're either vouching for them and we've done our homework, or we have the backup documents, you then come forward and say, we like it, we don't like it, it feels a bit hinky.
I think that would still make some fearful to apply, even if they knew how kind you were going to be or not.
Okay? Then, I mean, we could say applicants may be requested to provide. Like, we generally do pre-consultation meetings with most of our Terrence Hayden and most of our CIP, because there are questions, and then you get the application and it's missing something, and so we could, yeah,
If you have available to you to provide type of thing. Yeah.
I really like that, available upon request. Not the fund, or not the project details, but the
Yeah.
A and B.
okay,
Like if you have it and you want to give it to us, great.
okay. So then, we're basically saying, tell us how you're going to, how much money are you asking for, and how are you gonna spend it? Show us that financial plan, and if available, the current year's budget for the organization, which I think is where most people get a little, and then prior year's financial statements. And what I could do is, what we could do is end it at the prior year's financial statement information. And then the clearly showing revenues and expenses, we could scratch that out and say if it was in operation during the previous year. Okay. Okay. That's still a recommended housekeeping?
Provide me the wording, or if you're able to edit the document.
So it's for the resolution that they've already passed.
It's on that schedule,
Yeah, it would be part of Schedule A in my staff report.
the one that we did for the,
Yeah. I mean, you can still add another change. It doesn't change the package, or we made one change to the program, you can make another change to the program.
yeah,
It's
but as long as it's added to the schedule
Yep.
that goes to council.
Okay.
And
Well, and what I can do is, I'll revise the policy, I'll revise this area, send it back, and then,
yeah,
yeah.
so it would go on that schedule
Yeah.
with the other 2 items that were on there? Three items?
Look at this between us.
Okay. So, in saying that, Councillor Morphy, the burden will be on you to speak to this when it does come to council on how the committee has felt and how you feel strongly in regards to some of these, right? So you know?
I will stand by this,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no, and I
Council.
I know you brought it up, and I know you'll stand by it. I just, you know, the committee won't be here to speak to council, so,
More than welcome to come if you want.
yeah, I'll pass.
Okay.
Um, You okay? All right. Go ahead. Go
That's
ahead.
okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, this one is just, I need clarification and understanding from the group. We gave $200,000 of the Terrence Haight money to the Health Hub. And does that affect this program? I don't know how that worked, that it didn't come to us and council approved it. And I wanted to get a little input from you, Amy, how that worked.
I don't have a heck of a lot more input to give you. My understanding is at this point, everything is status quo. So we still have the ability off of the interest that we're earning to give away the $30,000 for Terrence Haight. A report has to go to council prior to us putting out the information for the coming year. So if there's any change to that, then we would be notified at that meeting to say, oh, no, it's only 25,000 or it's 35,000. But my understanding is that the way it is invested, it does not impact the amount that is allocated for this committee.
And I'd just like to comment or ask a question. So council did approve taking out of the body of $1 million, 200,000 to give to the Health Hub? Okay. Just want to clarify that. Cam, you had a question?
In our next meeting, could we see the letters that go to these people when they get this money? Just wouldn't mind closing the loop to see what the communication is.
Yep, not a problem.
So we do not have a determined date for our next meeting. We'll keep everybody in the loop. And I'll have a motion to adjourn if there's no other, you had all your issues looked after? Sorry.
That's
didn't
between
mean
me
to
and my
put that
therapist.
burden on
But I want to really drill down on the strong mayor versus council approval of the committee work we're doing here so that we have an understanding in terms of budgets. But yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So adjournment, motion, Cam, Kelsey, all those in favor? And that is carried.